Uit die blou van onse hemmel, uit die diepte van ons see. From out of the blue, I say, potential IMF bailout is on the cards for RSA. So many predictions, most of them dire, for the Republic of South Africa, the place of my birth and home, till well past the 30s. Yes, the lyrics, you are seeing the lyrics here for our national anthem after it had some Sutu Xhosa linguistic verses added, and of course the English verse sounds the call to come together, and united we shall stand. Let us live and strive for freedom. Uit die blou van onse hemel in Afrikaans means out of the blueness of our heavens. And that is how the lightning will strike, from out of the blue. So let's tell you about what's been going on in the great Republic of South Africa. First of all, why you should sub to the Reset Sniper. I've done a couple of things on RSA, on the Reset Sniper, especially as it's not just about South Africa. You might think, what do I care about that? I wasn't born there. I don't care about your past, your history. It's a microcosm model for a forthcoming game that will be through Europe, through America, through everything. It's a test bed. It's kind of like when I went to Ukraine and I saw how they capped the amount of money you can get out the ATMs, grid downs, bank lockdowns. You actually get to see a little peek into the future in a testbed environment. It's like long-term capital markets being bailed out for the elite and the big investors at your expense as taxpayer. Your expense. What then happens? 2008 and the bigger version comes. It's all a drill. It's all a test in a small place, like the little UBI tests going on in Finland. Scandinavia is a great place to test stuff. Control structures got all their dirty little fingers in there. Go apologize for your whiteness now. Go on. You know you must. So here we've spoken about Eskom and the control frauds. What is a control fraud? You'll get it all in these videos. Follow and subscribe and hit the bell. Control fraud is where you actually control an asset. You don't own it. And you strip it. You strip it by setting great big incentives, doing fake contracts for 3 times the value. In normal countries, you inflate by 10, 15%. In Africa, you make it 10x the cost of the actual delivery. You get a bad contractor who doesn't actually deliver. You overcharge by 10x, and when you could have had a good one for 1.5x, and you pocket the rest. Your Gupta friends fly with it. They divvy out bungs to everybody, and next thing you know, the only people that have been shafted are the citizens of the country, and the ones living in largesse are the political elite. You can read about it. The water crisis in Cape Town, absolutely no reason for water to be short anywhere in the world, let alone in Cape Town, surrounded by 2 oceans, and one of the purveyors of desalination plants selling into Dubai is South African, etc., etc. The New Zealand attack, the whole framing of white supremacists as this great evil that you all need to be fearing. You know, the real terrorists are like me. They have blue eyes, skinheads, wild eyes, and they want to murder other people of different colors and complexions. Apparently, that is your greatest threat right now. You'll learn about why, and I'm going to make a stark prediction. I actually did a video, and it's the first time I've did a video, not once but twice. And I said, I just can't release this. I just can't release this. It's going to get me into real crap. Making this prediction. It's going to get me properly into crap, and then my channels will start getting blocked and busted. A dark prediction I hope to be wrong on about a potential false flag that will be in the microcosm of SA that will lead to rolling backlash and be a model for physical attacks on whites the world over. I will get to that later. But let's deal with the topic in discussion. So in our community, we were discussing and watching the Rand having a little bump. And I was chatting to the guys and showing them this. And I said, I'm seeing a little bit of a bump. We saw the move in the currency first. The insiders always have the skinny on what's going down. This is a weekly chart. You might say, what move? It's that green candle, rather small on the weekly chart, but I've got alerts. I have alerts set, and I'm watching real tight because it's at a sensitive place, and we have a little bell that pops up on our trading view, and we're all watching stuff. In other words, we've got eyes in the back of our heads, and loads of us are in there. That's why we're a community and we work together. And I said, something up in the Rand. Why? Because I get a notification, and I'm setting tripwires everywhere. We trade to the level. We don't chase in FOMO in and panic sell out. You trade to the level, and if a key level is taken, I get notified. And I've had a suspicion that we've got a little bit of a fractal. That's gold. We'll come to gold. Actually, it plays a role. In South Africa, it actually plays a role. But let's get in. So we were talking and we were passing news events around, and this one came out, Reuters. And more importantly, I have a little bit of insight. So I am not in South Africa, but I want to maintain my passport. So I went and spoke to the people, and it was a small little place where I'm hiding, has a small little presence for the diplomats. And that means the main guy who's running the license for the diplomats is a South African, and he's also another nationality in the place that I currently live. And they're real small and they're chatty. And that's always interesting to me because I listen. I ask questions and then I sit down and listen. And so I made my appointment. There's very few other people. There's an office going on. And I sit down and listen to the High Commissioner have a chat. He comes in to chat to me, and he was at the cricket and all of this, and always willing to hear, talking about the music. He was in an area nearby me. We used to watch Highlands North Football Club. He was down the road from Highlands North. I was telling names of players he knew. We used to go and watch before it got totally swamped out, because football, South Africa, soccer as it's kind of known, whether you're American, was integrated early, well before Mandela was released. Teams with whites were playing blacks, etc., etc. Unlike the rugby, which was sort of Afrikaans, soccer was kind of English. And then it kind of got a little bit swampy, and then we all backed off. But for a while we were following, we were going like English guys. I had Eugene Kleinans in goal for me for Highlands North, and I had Ray Clements in goal for me in Liverpool in the UK. I had a Kleinans and a Clements, and the Kleinans drove behind us in a beat-up Jamton, chewing his gum, just like Jack the Lad. In other words, it weren't a big money thing. You did it for the love of the game. Anyway, I'm digressing here. I'm giving you narrative. This might not be a short vid, but it's going to be very interesting. I've got lots of real, and we're going to go to the charts. Oh my God, and it's going to involve gold and the rand and a currency and a trade and a forecast for a false flag. I've got it all coming for you. So let me just tell you, it's got Year Rupert in it, the doyen and probably one of the wealthiest South Africans out there at the moment, if you ask me. A little bit of a higher profile than he might like now, but he kind of maybe courted it a little bit, but I don't kind of blame him. He's become a hate figure. And I'll explain to that how it's racist, and he's a hate figure because he has got monopoly on capital. This is the new narrative, and it involved Bell Pottinger, dark state intelligence service based out of London. During the Gupta thieving era, they got these PR guys, and they told Zuma to say there is no capital. The reason why Africans in South Africa are not coming up is that there's a shortage of capital for them, and that this one guy, amongst others like him, has cornered all the ownership to capital. Meanwhile, his father built this great company called Remgroen. I remember Anton Rupert very well, and we have Johannes' son of Graaf Renit in the Cape, and he's now been phrased as part of the Stellenbosch mafia. Anyway, this is about a currency, a businessman, and why the outlook for South Africa is grim, in my view. It's one of the reasons I left. We saw this coming. Okay, so what happened? First, let's give you this news. Coming out on Friday, Fitch downgrades outlook on South Africa's credit rating. Now, you know these guys, they SAPs. This is Reuters reporting it. These agencies were sleeping during the subprime, etc. But, they do move eventually. Now, the key thing is state-owned enterprises. SOES is kind of a South African term. If someone says SOES, you won't know what it's talking about. Basically, we have an Airways, South African Airways. We have Eskom, the primary electric provider that used to, under the old evil apartheid government, power the whole sub-South African. We sold electricity we provided to Zimbabwe, not just our own needs. Now we get grid down, switching off. We even got the mines told they're going to have to have forced days off because of power downages. This is pure lack of preparation, not listening to the people, taking out all the people that understood the provision of electricity and flooding people onto the grid and not powering up. Anyway, more on that later. So they've downgraded. All these state-owned enterprises have been hollowed out entirely. since essentially the beginning of Mandela, but it got really bad under Zuma, and this was just a theftathon. Essentially, they have huge amounts of debt. They can't provide services. They keep escalating prices ever higher. The rate of electricity climbing in South Africa, the increases have been huge, and now it's become very expensive. This is like, you have to think of it as kind of like oil. So let me just say, it's kind of like a white wealth tax. Yes, electricity costs do affect percentage-wise even more the man in the street in the township because he doesn't earn a lot. But generally, they're not heavy users. They'll have one TV, a charger for their phone, couple of sockets. They don't have 3, 4, 5-bedroom homes with heating in winter and DSTV dishes and all sorts of things. So it's kind of like a wealth tax, the electricity, because it affects everyone. I think of it, energy being escalated in price. Remember why I talk about the Rockefeller tax in terms of oil? Well, actually, it's an energy-based thing. So the way they will tax business and they will tax whites by ever escalating the utility costs. And that's also allowed them, they've hollowed them out. So they hope to re-shore up the balance sheets after they've been stolen out shamefully and are probably continually still being stolen out on an ongoing basis. And I may get someone on from Eskom that's highlights that isn't a specialist in that field just to discuss that. But Eskom in itself, the primary provider of electricity, is no longer fit for purpose, and all sorts of radical things are being considered for provision of electricity in South Africa, and the costs have gone crazy. So to South Africans, inflation rate in terms of energy, all South Africans, I have an interest in all of them. I want them all to have a great life and well, but I can speak of a white experience because that's all I had and that's who I was when I was there, and the people I still contact. And so this is what is happening. So the state-owned enterprises have been stolen out, and now they've got a lot of dollar-denominated debt. Now, when you have dollar-denominated debt, this is part of the economic hitman's case handbook. You go to a place that has a small, niched, emerging currency, and you be the provider of roads, electricity, expansion of infrastructure, and you hand them a big block of dollar-denominated debt, and then you devalue their currency and you keep them on a treadmill. In the same way, control structures, control individuals, and make sure you never quite get wealthy and you never quite get away, and your savings and investments never quite make it, and you keep having to borrow and get you on a borrowing treadmill to buy a house, to buy a car, etc., and keep you toiling until your best years are behind and then you die. In the same way, you can do that to entire countries. So the US dollar is kind of that to the rand. You've got to remember the dollar rand used to be 2 in favor of the rand. The rand used to buy $2 and was equivalent to the pound in the 70s. Yes, that was true. Growing, strong country, lots of self-sufficiency, lots of gold. Today, let me just give you a quick whiz through the chart that I'll be going through later. You're at 14.26 to the dollar. To the dollar, by the way. So how do you like them apples for a little bit of taxation, dilution? Okay, anyway, so what's happened? Debt's gone up, ratings, debt is high, rating has gone down. So here's how things work. When you want to borrow and your credit rating goes down, what happens? The cost of borrowing goes up because the likelihood of you repaying has gone down because you already burgeoning under bats. By the time you have 4 credit cards and they all maxed out and you're asking for that 5th one, the guys looking at you said, it's time you went to Capital One or subprime credit provider XYZ or one of the others, and your APR is 31%. That's it. APR, annual percentage rate for money borrowed, and all sorts of other penalties and fall behind, and we do X, Y, Z, etc., etc. So this is kind of in the same way at a corporate level what happens. So you're moving towards junk, and they have fallen below investment grade. Fallen below investment grade. Fitch now rates South Africa at BB plus and not below investment grade with a negative outlook. That's the second part. So you can say, look, this is a once-off, they're being reduced to there. Or you can say, we're being reduced to there with the future also looking grim on the basis that we expect further reductions to come. Negative outlook, not a neutral outlook. Okay, so they're going down, which is the wrong direction, and the future outlook and trend is also further down. So that's what Cyril Ramaphosa has to deal with. So that's dealt with the lending thing. Cost of borrowing is going to go up. They're going to need more of it because they have bankrupted state. South Africa is looking like it's going to have to run to get bailouts before the rest of the world is all coordinated and synchronized for the great global one world order all fall on its face on the debt. We might even jump through the hoop before everybody else. And they don't actually want that necessarily. They want to all fall down, but who knows? Maybe one or two will get too ragged to either see it over the line at the same time. So in the ugliness race to the debt failing fiat system, we might be a winner in one thing as South Africa. So let's talk about this chat in the embassy that I was having, or the passport issuing, the office, and it was very interesting. This person had interactions with this particular individual, very wealthy, loves his cricket, loves his sport. On his jet, he has a Springbok emblem, mad rugby fan, loved to go watch the box in Tokyo as a guest of someone like Johan. It would be amazing. Smart businessman, son of a smart businessman, and he's grown Remgro in Richmond. So he has a number of things. The tobacco companies, which was Rembrandt, very, very big and strong. And then he also diversified into First Rand, Mediclinic, Health, and luxury brands. Big listing that he's done really, really well in. And he started to get the craps. So part of that is his family has been, as one of the richest families in South Africa, has been highlighted as this white capital monopolist. Because he's made money and he's successful, he's keeping other people down because he's monopolizing capital. That capital should be distributed to everybody else. Yes, you heard me right. It's kind of like a Bolshevik Marxists super thinking. He's friends with Stanley Druckenmiller. They'll have a go around a golf and chat about the world. When the guys want to talk about what's going on in SA, they phone him. Druckenmiller, do we want to short the rand? He will often say, don't do it. He said he's always spoken up for his country. He loves his country. He's a Boer from Graaf-Reinet, and he's a proud South African. We talk about standing up for our anthems and singing with our hearts full of air and oxygen and lungs abreast, clenching our butt cheeks so hard, as they say in the army, jy moet die nugget gevoel in jou hol kry. And you said, what did that guy just say? He spoke Afrikaans. He said, you're so parat and so proud for your country, and South Africans are like that from days of old, although they're more circumspect and cynical now, that you clench your buttocks so hard, you get a nugget feeling in your rectum. That's a little bit explicit for you, but that was kind of the stuff we got in the army. Ek wil sien dat jy daai nugget gevoel in jou hol kry if you sing your national anthem. So now you're having a cackle. But anyway, in all of this news, the ANC, he had a good working relationship with Mandela. He had a good working relationship with Thabo Mbeki. He represents business, and he spoke, and the president should have a working relationship with one of the most prominent business people. But now the view is he is a monopolist of capital. And actually more recently, since Zuma, who was emptying out the vault as fast as it was coming in, came in power, he didn't really have much interaction or hear very much from them, and he's not seeking to foist himself on them. And they, of course, were the beginning of, I always says it's 3 generations. Mandela, the hero and hope, and Mbeki manages it, and by the third case, the trend is set. It's like from shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. It's the same. And it's going to take those 3 presidents, and then that's it. We're in the downhill side. So Ramaphosa's come in and he's not sought to establish any relationship. And actually, they like the narrative that Bell Pottinger gave them. Someone to blame. So they have bankrupted state-owned enterprises, which is entirely government fault. But then they can always deflect on white racism and monopolism of capital on a successful businessman who sells most of his stuff offshore out of the country. And he said many things. I promised Gerard de Kock. Gerard de Kock was the guy who signed our South African Rand note. He was our Alan Greenspan of many years ago. He's not anymore. He was clearly an Afrikaner, as you can see. That if he allowed me to build Richmond overseas, I wouldn't take money out. He's kept his money in SA in rands when he was sitting in a currency that was being beamed out from parity to a pound and twice a dollar to now being 14 to a dollar. So it hasn't gone from 1 to 14. He's gone from being twice the strength of a dollar. 1 rand bought you $2. So that's how the mighty have fallen. Anyway, his father's business, yes, understood. He owns brands such as Cartier and Mont Blanc. The values of these have soared 570%. He's rich, rich, rich. He made great investments and good luck to him. He's 69 now, and now he's a hate figure. He's a hate figure for his success. And he's loved South Africa, he's sterling. So what happens now? Well, he says in this article, he doesn't sleep well when his kids come out anymore. They're such a hate finger, they get insulted and all of that. He puts them in England and he worries when they come and visit him at home. So now you're talking about a billionaire in dollars, 6 or 7 billion, that no longer wants his kids in his home country and is talking about moving out. He says, my heart will remain, but my body will be elsewhere. So this is taking shots at the government of the day. He's had big problems with the South African Receiver of Revenue, SARS as they're known. And they've harassed him in his companies. Now he says he's been legit and paid all his taxes. That he would say that, but he's made a bigger contribution out of his 2 companies, he claims, than most of the top 20 added together. So that sounds like an immense amount, and he's kept his money in rands, not leading to flight out of the profits that he's has been whatever. So there's a power play here. Maybe his nose is out of joint because no one talks to him. Maybe there's some ego. He's a wealthy man. You wouldn't be surprised. But the key element is it's not smart to upset somebody, because when guys want to talk about SA, they phone him. All the international guys. He was put forward for a award. He doesn't accept awards. This one he did accept. Guess who put him forward for it in New York? Yours truly, Henry Kissinger. So let's just say that's a dodgy name for me. That's a real powerful name in terms of the control structure, in terms of what I say. And he's had him put forward. He's asking for contact with Ramaphosa, but his predictions here are quite severe. Maybe it's clouded by his own experience. Maybe he's sour grapes that he no longer has influence in the ear of the politics. There could be lots of things that people will levy at him. My argument, however, is it's still a mistake to upset him, because he has key ties. He has key ties and is very, very powerful. And when people phone him about the rand, this is the reference of Stellenbosch mafia, or winelands in South Africa. Stellenbosch, very beautiful, very old traditional Cape Dutch styling, etc. He's part of that whole set and scene. Now, if you upset someone like this and he says, you know what, it is time to short this thing's going down the toilet. Now, when I was in the commission's office and I was speaking to him, this person was watching cricket with him, and we had a discussion prior to this event, and I actually warned certain friends, because this matters, that he speaks very negatively now and is greatly concerned about South Africa. And sure enough, now we have this money and investing article come out on the 25th of July, and then we get a downgrade. So 25th, it's the 27th today, it's Saturday. Friday was the 26th. So on the 25th, you have Year Rupert come out and say, an IMF bailout within a year for South Africa. How's that going to work for the rand? Not good. Then you have the downgrade of debt by the Standard & Poor's agency, Fitch, sorry, my apologies, Fitch agency, and a little tick on the rand up. And now you're hearing that he's been talking about it for a while, because I'm telling you he has. In recent cricket events in Lords with the one-day matches and people that I'm hearing. So this is a guy that gets put up for awards by Kissinger, hangs out with Stanley Druckenmiller, and is worth $6 billion, which is a lot of Rand billions times 14. So that looks very, very bearish, guys. That looks very, very bearish for South Africa, and is a core flag. So let's move on from that. I've said